Hello and welcome to Dishelved with Adam White. I'm going to talk about some more paranormal investigators today. I mentioned last week that I was going to look into that and see what I could come up with and see where it takes me. I like paranormal investigators, urban fantasy, stuff like that. So it took me to a couple different places this week. The first one was The Complete Weird Epistles of Penelope Pettyweather, Ghost Hunter by Jessica Amanda Salmonson. This, when I read about it, I thought the stories were like from the 1920s or 30s, and it turns out they're from the 1990s. So I was completely wrong on that when I got it. And so I misunderstood that, but didn't matter. I thought I'd give it a chance. It's called Ghost Hunter, so it should be about hunting ghosts. And it was a collection of short stories, and ghosts appear in maybe half of them, and the rest of them deal with folklore and stuff like that of the Northwest, I believe. I think it, I believe it was. It's very cozy ghost hunting, if that's the right term. There was nothing very menacing or horrific about any of these stories. The first story was okay. It kind of had some mystery to it, and the final story in the book was kind of creepy. But for the most part, this is a book that you would give, like, if you have an elderly grandmother that has just a passing taste for the supernatural, you might give it to her to read because it's not too heavy of a book to read. Uh, it wasn't bad. It was well written. It just wasn't the subject matter that I thought it was going to be. And like I said, it wasn't even written in the times I thought it was written in, because I thought it was an example of an early female ghost hunter, occult detective, when it was really from the 1990s. So, and this was just published in like 2016 or something. So, like I said, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything that I'm going to revisit. It just wasn't wasn't the kind of ghost hunting I was looking for. Uh, Most of them doesn't involve any hunting of ghosts at all. The main character, Penelope Pettyweather, just most of these are written as they were letters to a friend, and they're just her discussing her encounters with ghosts, or almost encounters with ghosts, or of some folklore, uh, sea dragons and things like that, like the Loch Ness monster kind of thing. Um, but overall, it just really didn't do it for me. So if you like the supernatural but like it very tame, um, then sorry, I lost my screen here. Then this might be for you. But it was, like I said, very tame, and I was looking for something a little more. Um, you could have kids read this. It just is not haunting at all. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. The other one I read on my Kindle, so I can't show you, but Criminali has talked about it before, and it's Occult Detective Magazine. I read issue 8, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I didn't know what to expect out of it because, it's an independently produced magazine. And I read it on my Kindle, and I just finished it, and I thought it was outstanding. The selection of short stories in it were worthy of a book published of short stories, an anthology. They went from they were from various countries. Some of them took place in Scotland, and I believe Nigeria was one, and one was French. I mean, they went all over the world. One was in Haiti, an especially good one. Which one was that? I can't remember now. Maybe the bones are walking, I believe. But it was just this. I mean, there was reviews and stuff in it too, and those were good. And there was they showed some reviews for some books that I'm definitely interested in checking out. But where it really shined was its short fiction. And I can't wait to get another issue of this and read it, because the stories were outstanding. And I'm having trouble remembering which ones were which, because I just kind of read it all at once. And on the Kindle, it's hard to flip back and forth between stories and tell you which one was which. But there was a Theater of the Mind, The Bones Are Walking by Rebecca Buchanan. I believe that was the one that had the Haitians in it. That was an especially good one. A story about, it's hard to describe. It had to do with voodoo and getting a child back from a creature and returning him to his rightful mother. And it involved the president of Haiti. And I mean, it had all sorts of stuff going on in it, and it was all good. Really excellent story. Committee of Mystery was a good one. I mean, they were all good, but Oral Apparitions, Becoming Art Deco was an interesting one. It was probably the least uh, detective oriented. It was about a guy who encountered spirits and wrote firsthand accounts of what they said to him. And so that's kind of the whole thing. It's about a statue that appears in front of a hotel that no one knows where it came from or when it came. It was just there. And it was that was Becoming Art Deco by Christina L. White, no relation. Uh, but it was a pretty good story. Spirit Counselor, I thought, was excellent. I don't know how to pronounce the author's name, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm just going to tell you it was called Spirit Counselor. But it was the one I think that took place in, I believe it was Nigeria. It was an African country, but it was about a spirit counselor who deals with the supernatural, and is approached by this college student who has lost two of her friends to some mysterious entity. And it involves an app on their phones. And it was a really interesting mix of the supernatural and technology. And I've never read anything quite like it. And to be honest, this issue of the magazine was worth it just for that story. I thought that highly of it. It was really, really good. And I looked up the author, and so far I can only find maybe there was two other magazines that had short stories by him in it. But I'm going to do some more research on that, because I thought it was just truly excellent. The Memory Fumes, The Voice on the Moor, Ghost Train Spotting was a fun one. It's about these ghost investigators that go out looking after. They're part of Ghostly Insurance, so they're part of an insurance company, and a company that is wanting to start using these old railroad tracks again that haven't been used in a long time, have heard there's a ghost train on it, and they want their insurance people to check it out before they start trying to build through it and everything. Really fun story. Really interesting. And it was very different from stuff that I've read. And the insurance angle was just kind of amusing. It was funny. And intentionally so, I think. But it was the ghost hunter slash insurance agent, and it was a really fun story. There's a story by Andrew Neil MacLeod that is kind of an introduction to the characters he uses in The Fall of the House of Thomas Weir, which is a novel. There's 2 novels in that series. It was called The Grey Men of Glamag, I guess. I don't know. I can't pronounce half the stuff in this issue, but it was a really good story about some. I think they were in the 1800s, maybe. But it was a really interesting story too. Vinny DeSoth and the Saucer People by I.A. Watson. Very fun story. Uh, they go with a bunch of alien hunters that are at a place where there's a crop circle, and they're searching for a missing girl, and think they're going to encounter some aliens, and it's and it turns out in a really strange way what goes on. I believe there's some books of short stories about this Vinny DeSoth character. I need to do a little more research on that, but if there are, I'm going to read them because I really like this story. And one of the last stories was called "The Dead Shall Rise" by C.L. Raven, which is actually 2 twin sisters that write stories. And I looked into them too, and they have some other books, which I'm definitely interested in reading after this. This one was about a necromancer investigator who could bring back the dead briefly to get impressions of what happened to them dying while they were dying. And just a really fun story. Uh, in the toll it takes on the necromancer to do such a thing, and it definitely left it open at the end of the story to have some more with this character, Indiana Reigns, I believe, which is interesting choice for a name, but I thought maybe they could have gone with another state since there's an Indiana Jones already, but um, it didn't matter because I really loved the story and thought they really have something there. I've tried to find if there's any more with that character, any other stories, but I haven't found so far that there is. So I hope that they do something else with it because, like I said, it was kind of open ended and really invited more story to it than what was there. And I really, really enjoyed it. Anyway, Penelope Pettyweather, can't really recommend it. Like I said, unless you want to do it for kids or something or somebody really elderly. And that's not to knock um, those demographics. It just isn't for someone who's used to reading something a little more hardcore than what these stories are. And the Occult Detective magazine #8, definitely worth your time and money. You can get it on Kindle or order a physical copy of it. Whichever it is, I highly recommend you do so if you like these types of stories at all, because you're really going to enjoy most of these stories. Like I said, I enjoyed all of them at varying degrees, but a few of them I thought were just absolutely outstanding. And I can't wait to read another issue of this magazine. Anyway, that's my deal with Occult Detectives for this week. I might do something different next week just to mix things up. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but hopefully it'll be interesting. And hopefully today's was interesting for you. And thank you for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you next week.